Imagine this. We're at a party together enjoying some valuable time with friends, and you also happen to be enjoying a nice, refreshing bottle of black cherry soda. When all of a sudden we bump into each other. The bottle falls, spilling black cherry soda all over the floor. We look at each other tensely. What happened? You might blame me for bumping into you, but I might blame you for not being more careful. But this blame game keeps us from seeing a deeper, more constructive truth. Because what did happen? Well, quite simply, black cherry soda spilled onto the floor. That's it. Because that's what was inside. If water was inside, water would spill out. If orange juice was inside, orange juice would spill out. And the same is true for me and you. Whatever is inside will spill out when life takes us by surprise and turns our world upside down. If we're not mindful of what we fill ourselves with, then our happiness, our peace, our joy becomes tied to our circumstances. When we're not mindful and when our world turns upside down, well, then our happiness spills out. And yet, when we are mindful of what we fill ourselves with and take control of our peace and joy and happiness, then even when the world does turn upside down, we can still land on our feet. The choice is ours. Do we want to stand tall even when the world is turned around? Or do we want to spill all over the floor when the world is turned around? The choice is ours. Now, as for me, I know what I'm trying to choose. Won't you join me? Hi, I'm Jonas Kane, owner of #Positivity, where I work as a positivity consultant, learning experience designer, and facilitator of fascination. The thought experiment that you just experienced is, of course, just a trick, but it does point to the truth. Because if we're honest with ourselves, how many times have we been so distracted by our default reactions to our experiences that it makes us miss the deeper, more constructive truths behind them? Let's take this even deeper. Think of a time in your life when your world was disrupted by something that just didn't go as planned. And I mean really disrupted. Maybe it was something that someone said or did that caused emotional stress, or maybe something just didn't quite work out as expected. It could be as simple as black cherry soda spilled all over the floor, or it could be as deep as a lost job, an illness, a breakup, or death, or truly anything else in between. Whatever it is, think of the trigger that disrupted your world. If you have a piece of paper handy, I encourage you to write down in just a few words what this trigger was. Do this now. A number of years ago, I experienced a rather frustrating circumstance. I was on tour with my magic act, touring with a band called The Ear, The Eye, and The Arm. It was an experimental electronica trio, and I like to think of myself as the leg, because I helped with a lot of the legwork, lugging the equipment from the tour van into the club every night. During this trip, we stopped for a show in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I had never been to Pittsburgh before, so I was pretty excited. I loved new experiences. And after unloading all of the band's equipment into the venue, I went back out to the tour van to get my suitcase so I could start the setup for my magic act. But this is where the story really gets interesting. As soon as I got outside, I became aware that there were 2 street thugs lurking about. And I knew that they are street thugs because I've watched television, and these were just like the ones on TV. They had hoods and everything. They were literally street hoodlums. My gut instinct was to retreat back to the safety of the club and wait for the thugs to scamper off. But then I hesitated. And I hesitated because I thought to myself, I don't actually know that these two gentlemen are actually street thugs. That's just society. That's the media. My assumptions, my fears telling me something about these two people that I truly know nothing about. So I ignored my fears and I went to the van anyway. And you know what happened, right? Yeah, I got mugged. Now, I had never been mugged before, so this was all very exciting. I love new experiences. But it all happened very quickly. And as soon as it started, it was over again. And I was in a bit of a daze. If you've ever been mugged before, you know it's startling. So I grabbed my suitcase and I wander back into the club just in time to be told that it was time to start my set. So I wander onto stage with my equipment and I say, so I was just mugged outside. And everyone just started laughing. They thought it was hilarious. They thought it was part of my act. I said, no, I'm serious. It's true. I don't want to be in Pittsburgh anymore. I want to go home. Part of the reason that I'm telling you this story is that it all happened so quickly and I didn't have time to process it right away. But when I did take time to really let it sink in, I realized something quite profound. Those street thugs were actually rather nice to me. It was all in their words. Our words have power. They have the power to lift us up, but they also have the power to tear us down. And as the muggers were stealing my money, they did their part to help build me up. This is what they said to me after pushing me up against the van. They said, "Stay cool. Give it up." Did you catch that? It's subtle, and I didn't catch it right away, so I certainly won't fault you if you don't catch it right away either. But consider this. In order to stay cool, you have to already be cool. So they were complimenting me. They thought I was a pretty cool guy, which, let's be honest, they're not wrong. The other reason I'm telling you this story is that even the most frustrating of circumstances can teach us something, so long as we're willing to keep an open perspective. And I learned something that day in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I now know the true meaning of the name Pittsburgh Steelers. It's a true story, an absurd story, but it is a true story, and it's one of my favorite stories to tell family and friends. And one of my friends one day, he told me that he really loved that Pittsburgh story because if he had been in that same situation, he said he just wouldn't have been able to find a way to laugh about it. And up until then, I didn't see that side of the story. I just thought as an interesting thing that happened to me, and there's a fun pun at the end. But he really got me to thinking that you could take two different people and put them in the same situation. One person can walk away from the situation feeling frustrated. The other person can walk away from the same situation fascinated by the whole thing. And it all depends on the perspective that we choose to frame our circumstances. I invite you to look again at the trigger that you wrote down, that source of frustration in your life. Whatever you wrote down, I am sure it's very reasonable to be frustrated by this. And it's important to honor this truth, because choosing fascination over frustration does not ignore the reality of your circumstances. Rather, all it's doing is seeking to level the playing field. You've probably seen this played out in your own life, where you go about your day and you could have 9 positive experiences and just have 1 negative interaction. And even though you've had all these wonderful things happen to you, this one negative situation negates all of the positive things that happen to you as you ruminate and fester in that negative experience. But we don't have to rely just on our own personal experiences to recognize this truth. Research shows that humans have been biologically wired with a negativity bias. And this is because if our ancestors didn't focus on threats, they'd likely starve to death or get eaten by a tiger. The problem is we have an ancient brain experiencing a modern world. So by focusing on the positive, by choosing fascination over frustration, all we're doing is leveling the playing field. Let's try a quick activity to see this in action. Take a look at these 8 words on the screen. These are words that we would likely qualify as positive words. Words that, if focused on, we could facilitate positive experiences for ourselves and the people we influence. In a moment, a word search is going to appear on the screen. And how does a word search work? You have a bank of words, in this case these 8 words, and you have to find those words hidden inside a puzzle mixed among a random assortment of letters. Your task will be to find as many of these 8 positive words from this word bank as you can, hiding inside the puzzle. But I'm only going to give you 30 seconds. Are you ready? On your mark, get set, go! Time's up. Did you find all 8 words? Maybe you found 5 or at least 2 or 3. However many you found, high five. But the real question is, did you find any words in the puzzle that weren't on the list? The secret of this puzzle is there were more than just those 8 words from the list. In fact, there were an equal number of positive words as negative words. However, you likely found more positive words because that's what you went in looking for. Whether we seek a positive mindset or fester in a negative mindset, they are equally self-fulfilling prophecies because we'll find whatever we are consciously looking for. How we respond to our circumstances can have a significant impact on our lives by literally changing the neural networks in our brain through a process called conscious experiences. Research shows that our brain is kind of like a spotlight attached to a vacuum cleaner. What we give attention to, what we focus on, is highlighted by the spotlight. But because it's attached to a vacuum cleaner, it gets sucked right up into our brain, for better or for worse. What we choose to focus on has the power to change our experience of reality. The question is, what are you focusing on? Choosing fascination over frustration is not always an easy process, especially when there's so many conflicting influences around us. But the first step is to simply be aware of the triggers that lead to frustration. In a way, choosing fascination over frustration is kind of like the same process we use to change the shape of an ice cube. First we melt the ice, then we decide on the new shape we want the ice to be, and then we refreeze it into that new shape. And choosing fascination over frustration is a similar kind of process. In fact, I'm encouraged by the words that the Pittsburgh Steelers used when they told me to stay cool, give it up. We have to give up our old negative way of being and just let it melt away. And then decide on a new, more positive way of being, and then practice that every day until it refreezes into a new mindset and lifestyle. The important thing is to simply start. Start with where you are. Start with one thing. And start making positive changes. It's been a joy being with you today, and I'm looking forward to next time. Until then, my name is Jonas Kane. Stay positive.